is Digital Marketing Depot, broadcasting live. I'm Karen Burka, your webinar producer. Thank you for joining us today for Google Analytics 360, a buyer's guide. We are very pleased to welcome InfoTrust's Michael Loban, Chief Marketing Officer, and Andy Gibson, Head of Vertical. Now, before I turn the webinar over to our speakers, I have a few things I want to tell you. If you need some help or have a question for our speakers, just use the Q&A box, and we will do our best to help you. If you want to tell a friend, check out our sponsor InfoTrust or Digital Marketing Depot. There are some widgets at the bottom of your screen. Just click on them and they will take you where you want to go. Remember that you can customize your audience console to move or resize any windows that you have open. I also want to point out that we have a resources widget today, which features a very useful buyer's guide that will complement our presentation. We are going to hear a lot of great content today. So I wanted to let you know we are recording this broadcast, and we will make it available for viewing on demand this afternoon. I'll send an email out when it's ready. So with that business taken care of, let me make some more formal introductions. Michael Loban is InfoTrust's Chief Marketing Officer and also an adjunct instructor at both Xavier University and University of Cincinnati on the subjects of digital marketing and analytics. He has been featured in various publications, including Adweek, and is a frequent speaker at digital analytics industry events around the world. Andy Gibson is Head of Vertical at InfoTrust, where he leads digital analytics trainings for some of the world's largest brands. Andy is also an adjunct professor at the University of Cincinnati on the subjects of digital marketing and analytics. Audience, you can see more complete bios and contact information for our speakers on the left side of your console. Remember, if you have questions for our industry experts, please make good use of that Q&A box. I'll get to as many of those questions live after the formal presentation. So with that, I will turn the webinar over to Michael to get us started.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the introduction, and welcome, everyone. We absolutely have a completely packed webinar today. There's a lot of great topics. And what we want to do is walk you through a whole process of determining and convincing your management if an enterprise analytics solution is something that your business needs. And so first is what we'll do is we'll take a high-level view to understand what type of business and marketing problems enterprise solutions like Google Analytics 360 can solve. The next question is, well, if we understand why we need a solution, is how do we demonstrate the ROI of analytics? Analytical products, like any enterprise solutions, can be quite expensive. And so the question is, if I invest $50,000 or $100,000 in this technology, how am I going to be able to recoup this investment? Certainly a question that a lot of executives that have to create this budget or have to approve this budget will want to know. Then Andy will walk us through a number of examples of how we can integrate tools like Google Analytics 360 with other platforms and the benefit of having not just one enterprise platform, but an enterprise platform that integrates with a number of other solutions and aggregate the positive effect that it can have on your business. And then we'll talk about negotiating a successful partnership. How do we actually identify a right type of vendor for the solution? And what can you do to generate the best deal to make sure that you don't just buy the product, but you get the right type of support, consulting that will make your investment the most worthwhile? And certainly towards the end, we're going to answer all the questions. So please feel free to leverage the Q&A feature of the webinar and post some of the questions. We are monitoring them, and we will reply to them on this webinar. And with that, let's get started. So is Google Analytics 360 really the right type of organization for us? You know, a lot of times we think that analytics is just the matter of collecting more information or collecting a lot of more data. But really, we already are drowning in data, and as a number of executives say, we are starving for insights. So perhaps we need something more than just a solution that will give us endless number of data points about our customers. Perhaps we need something that can really help us solve certain marketing challenges or make our marketing processes more efficient. So with that, what are some of the common marketing problems that analytics can help us identify? Well, the first one is, who is our ideal target customer? Simply spending money on marketing channels and bringing everyone to the website can increase your traffic, can increase your acquisition, but can also run you out of business. You need not just more traffic, but you need the right traffic to come to the website. The second type of challenge is, well, how do we bring those people effectively to our website? And this is where marketing attribution comes into play. We have a certain budget, and we need to spend it smartly so we are able to bring the best customers to our website and generate revenue for our business. And last one is, as we continue to generate more people and bring more prospects, more customers to the website, we already acquired them. Then the question is, how can we get the most out of the relationship with our existing client base? So how do we grow the frequency of their purchases, and how do we grow the average order value of those purchases? Now, a couple of months ago, we published an article in Forbes on 6 P's of digital transformation. And it starts with this purpose, why we need analytics solution, but then it has 3 P's of execution: people, platform, and processes. And when you buy an enterprise solution like Google Analytics 360 or any others that are available on the market, you are buying a very sophisticated platform. However, having just a platform, as you probably know by now, is not enough. And so the question that we have to think through is, are our people ready to really utilize a solution like Google Analytics 360? And if not, then what are our options? Can we buy additional trainings? Is the solution easy to use so we can actually train our team? Do we need to consider consulting from a company that actually sells the product? Or can we find a vendor that will be able to help us leverage this technology? And that's a very important question to answer, because if you have a fancy car and no one knows how to drive it, it's not going to do you any good. And the other one is processes. Once we have this new technology in place, are we actually able to create sustainable processes within our business to turn this raw, powerful data into actionable insights? And today on this webinar, what we want to do is showcase how buying Google Analytics 360 can help you solve for all 3 P's, for people, platforms, and for processes. So what does a paid solution offer? Many of us have experience with tools like Google Analytics, which is the #1 most used analytics solution in the world, which is present on 80% and more sites. Why do we need an enterprise product that has a hefty price tag? Well, enterprise solutions tend to offer a couple of advantages. #1 is more granular segmentation and analysis. So we are able to segment our data better. It has more integrations, a very important feature that we are going to discuss today on this webinar, all the integrations that are possible with Google Analytics 360. We have more controls about our data. We actually own the data, and we are able to easily export all of our raw data into a data warehouse where we can combine it with other solutions. And we'll walk you through some of the examples of how to do that with BigQuery. More data collection capabilities, ability to create more sophisticated reports, and more support from actually people, or more consulting from partners that will be able to help you fully leverage the solution. Now, if we look specifically at Google Analytics versus Google Analytics 360. Google Analytics 360 targets enterprise type of customers, and as you can see, has a lot more robust data processing capabilities. We are able to export all of our unsampled data. We have 4-hour data freshness, meaning that data is available in all standard reports within 4 hours, and obviously there is real time. That's also available within Google Analytics. Then we have robust Google integrations. So not just with Google AdWords and Google AdSense, but with tools like DoubleClick Bid Manager, DoubleClick Campaign Manager, DoubleClick for Publishers, BigQuery, DoubleClick Search, additional enterprise features, and one specifically to call out is data-driven attribution, which is a suite of reports to help us crack the question of attribution and determine what media actually helps us generate more sales and more traffic. And Google Analytics 360 includes support and additional consulting services to fully help us leverage the solution. So now what we want to do is take a closer look at how do we demonstrate the actual ROI of analytics. And we are going into this interesting time of the year, obviously holiday season, so there'll be a little bit of a mayhem for many of us. But it's also the time of the year when organizations are searching for budgets and planning to secure budgets for next year. And many organizations are asking this question, how do we secure a budget for an enterprise analytics product? Let's say you've never had an enterprise analytics solution, you've always lived with Google Analytics. You like the idea of what Google Analytics 360 offers, but now you need to explain a price tag to your management. And this is a common question. What we would like to propose is actually think about this question slightly differently. Don't think about the question, well, how do I get my team to buy into this for the first time? But rather consider a question, if I already had the solution for the year, how do I explain to my team they need to renew? So how do you protect the budget? The reason the second question is more powerful is because initially when we sell something for the first time, there is that kind of excitement, right? They've never used it, it has a great promise, and we are explaining to our team that there is something that we haven't done before, but here are the reasons why we think it might work. And we kind of go on a limb to give this a shot. Now, if you look at this from a different standpoint, when we actually have to defend our budget, we have to show some concrete examples and demonstrate how this product has impacted our marketing efforts. So it will force you to think about the actual ROI that a tool like analytics will be able to generate for your business. And with that, let's look at 3 areas for how we can impact our marketing ROI with analytics. Now, the first one, as we've discussed, to tie it to some of the common marketing challenges, is our ability to target and segment our customers. We need to focus on long-term success and not simply the first conversions. So in terms of analytics, we need to be able to understand that when a user comes to the website and completes the purchase, not how much that one purchase is worth to us, but if that person stays with us for the foreseeable future, for their lifetime, how much value are they going to be able to generate for the business? Or how many products they will be able to buy from our website. And then based on that, they are able to calculate our acquisition costs. Because it's one thing to know that I'm acquiring a customer that will buy a $10 product. It's another thing to know that I'm acquiring a most profitable long-term customer that will generate $1,000 for my business over the next 10 years. Certainly your acquisition costs are going to change. It's not cost efficient to design optimal customer experience for everyone. You have to choose who the right types of customers are and invest in acquiring them, which in turn will help you generate the highest lifetime value for the business. Now, the way it can be accomplished with tools like Google Analytics 360 is we are able to add more custom dimensions or custom metrics in a tool like Google Analytics 360. So we are able to import from our CRM information about CLV for each individual customer. And then we can retarget customers based on CLV. A lot of times retargeting happens when you look at the product page and you did not check out, and you're immediately targeted with ads trying to bring you back in and complete the purchase. But what about doing retargeting, knowing that this customer has spent with you X amount of money, and there is a high likelihood that this person will spend a lot more money with you over their lifetime? Yes, certainly remarketing strategies are going to change. You can also exclude customers that have low customer lifetime value. Why spend a lot of money trying to convince people to buy from you if in the long run they are not going to stay with you? And then you can build similar audiences where you can reach users similar to your best customers. And look at the data. CRM-powered ads, or ads that have data from the CRM system about our customers, data such as customer lifetime value, CRM-powered ads are 47% more effective than traditional targeting. And I think there was one question about what is CLV, what do we mean by CLV? It's customer lifetime value. Customer lifetime value is the projection of how much money a customer will spend with your business over time, just to clarify that. And customer lifetime value is, we've actually done webinars in the past on customer lifetime value, so as a follow-up, we'll be able to share those as well. The next question is, well, okay, let's say we have an idea of who our most profitable customer types are. We know where they live, we know where they shop online, what sites they visit. Now the question is, can we build the best media model or attribution so we only invest in relevant media to acquire them as our customers? So what media mix modeling allows us to do is eliminate marketing waste, where we can stop target people that come to the website but never complete a conversion. We can identify non-incremental media spend, where we are able to see, look, we are spending a lot of money on Facebook, Instagram, and Google, but if we remove Instagram from the equation, our conversions do not drop. Should we actually be spending money on Instagram? And lastly, return on advertising spend. And here's an example of how we can combine all of this data right in a technology like Google Analytics, where we can see different marketing channels. For example, we have Google, Bing, Facebook, Outbrain, and others. We can see not just the number of sessions from each channel, but we can see, obviously, cost. And then we can see click-through rate for each channel. We can see cost per click, return per click, and return on advertising spend. And as you're looking at this information, you can see that although Google generated the most sessions or generated the most traffic, but the highest return on advertising spend actually comes from Facebook. And all of this information can be available right within a solution like Google Analytics 360. So you do not need third-party data aggregate tools. And another example, the type of question that you can answer is, well, we have Facebook campaigns, we have AdWords campaigns, so what is the probability of purchase increase if we add AdWords campaigns versus having just the Facebook campaigns on a website? And within Google Analytics 360, data-driven attribution, data-driven models help you answer exactly these questions. Now, once we know who are the types of customers or types of prospects that we want to bring to the website, and we understand how much money we should be spending to do so, the question is, can we do this more efficiently? And here's where A/B testing comes in. And there's integration between Google Analytics 360 and Google Optimize 360. We can be that much smarter in the types of tests that we run. We can use the audiences that we already understand. So we can create our segments within Google Analytics. and we can actually share those segments with tools like Google Optimize. So we can run A/B tests on specific segment and cohorts of users. We can reach users based on any action. So if target or A/B test only users that watched the video, or users that only clicked on a button on one of your landing pages. And we have the data that's available within Google Optimize and within Google Analytics, so we can really see how this personalization and testing matters are able to impact our business. And here's an example where we can, within Google Analytics, we can actually build a user segment, let's say by behavior, by traffic sources. So I only want to target people that have been on my website before, that come from this channel, and I want to run an A/B test for them. So it gives you much more granular abilities to run your experiments. And hence, you can run your experiments much faster. A lot of times when we work with clients, they tell us, well, we run an A/B test, but it takes us about a month to figure out what we want to test and then come back with results. With this type of data points and the tools available to you, you can do tests daily and weekly. Which brings us to the next point. So the other bigger way for us to measure the ROI of analytics is understanding time to insights. Data is great. We certainly have a lot of access to data within Google Analytics, within any other analytical solution that you have. But one of the key questions is, well, how much time does it actually take us to understand the data and to make an impact using this information? Something that we like to call ACT. And action obviously changes things. And what that means is we need to be able to change our marketing. We need to be able to impact our business strategies using analytics. Otherwise, any type of investment is just not going to be worthwhile. And I want you to consider just a couple of interesting data points that came from a recent research. 3 in 5 data professionals say it takes days or weeks to access all the information they need. Now think about this. Before you can make a marketing decision, you either can do it using a gut feel, and we hope that's not how you do it, or you do it with the information that's this data that's available to you. But if it takes you 5 days to actually access that information, most likely you're just going to run out of time. 70% said that they have to pick up programming languages because they cannot get help from the IT teams, or IT teams are overwhelmed. And so instead of doing the actual analysis, analysts have to become programmers. Or 44% of analysts teams spend more than half of their time assessing and preparing data rather than doing actual analysis. When people are telling us that, you know what, it took me a day or 2 days to prepare a monthly report that I have to present to my management. Those are the 2 days that could have been spent running A/B tests or running other marketing experiments. So do not spend all of this time creating reports or dashboards. Spend your time doing the analysis. And this is what the technology is supposed to help you accomplish. That's why measuring your time to act is so important, because if before it took you 1 week to do your marketing analysis for a month, and now it's taking you a couple of hours, that's a massive savings of time that can be applied to something else. And with that, let me turn this over to my esteemed colleague, Andy, and he will talk about integration and how powerful integration between Google Analytics 360 and other platforms can be.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. So just to recap, Michael's talked a little bit about how to determine if GA360 is right for your business, and then also how to demonstrate the ROI of analytics internally to your organization. Now, for this next section, I'm going to discuss several ways to provide that value for your GA360 purchase. So one of the major trends in marketing and analytics over the last couple of years has been this concept of integrating and unifying data sources. So this is definitely possible with GA360, and Michael has shown you a couple examples so far of that, but I'll take you through some of the Google-specific native integrations that are available with GA360, and then also some non-Google-specific custom integrations that we've done in the past to talk about some of that value, and then I'll provide some examples around that as well. So first, let's discuss what I'm talking about when I'm talking about data integration with GA360. So specifically what I'm talking about is integrating data within Google Analytics 360 by pushing and merging these kind of external data sets into Google Analytics 360. Really, this is going to allow for improved analysis, more granular audience building, and then closing the sales loop, and a couple other things. So I'll give you some examples and benefits of these here over the next couple slides. One of the great things about Google Analytics 360 is that you can send both online and offline data from other systems into GA. This really means that additional platforms like your customer relationship management tool, which is just abbreviated to CRM system, your data warehouse or internal database, and other different types of data sources can all be sent over to Google Analytics 360. So to pull this concept kind of together at a high level, let's take a look at this diagram, and we'll talk through this. So this diagram is really showing you a kind of unified, integrated marketing and analytics data set there in the very middle. On the left, you can see the different marketing and advertising channels that are being used to drive traffic. And then on the very right, you can see sort of these disparate internal data sources. So a lot of user data sources like your data warehouse, your SQL database, your CRM system, any kind of like online store data or in-store data, all these different systems that aren't really integrated and they're not talking to each other. In the middle, then, you see the end result, which is this kind of single customer view, integrated view across all these different data sets. So let's discuss the actual value of creating this single customer view in Google Analytics 360. The first point here I want to make is that when you integrate things with Google Analytics 360, you're going to have a single point of truth. So instead of working in 5 different platforms, using only data in those platforms kind of in a siloed manner, you're going to be sending these data points into GA360 for more of a centralized view. So you're no longer dealing with these kind of 5 separate data sets. You have one unified data set that's going to then deliver those kind of unified insights and activities that you can take off of those. The next point here is being able to generate a higher return on your analytics investment. So you can use additional data points and then user attributes to build more effective and granular advertising campaigns. You can also remove low-value users or customers from your advertising campaigns, thus lowering your acquisition costs. And Michael talked a little bit about that in his previous section. So just to give you guys an example, our data science team internally here has worked with a few of our e-commerce companies to actually identify and then predict users with low customer lifetime value, and then actually remove those people from remarketing and advertising audiences. So this allows the actual companies to then save money and lower their acquisition costs because they're able to basically exclude these people that are that have a very low probability to actually purchase and then purchase on a regular basis. So being able to expend some of that waste allows them to then generate a higher return on advertising spend. Another huge value of integrating with GA360 is through improved attribution. So one of the things you'll hear a lot of times when people are talking about this kind of unifying data set is closing the loop on sales and marketing activities. For many companies, the actual purchases or transactions can happen offline via things like a call center or in-store visits. So without integrating these kind of offline data sets with Google Analytics 360, you're never really able to measure the actual return on your investment when it comes to your advertising and marketing efforts online. So for example, if I'm spending another, let's say $100 per website lead, but the actual purchase, I spend $100 to get this person to the site, they make the purchase offline. I have no way to tell if that $100 that I spent on acquiring this user is actually generating any type of return on my advertising spend. My attribution model is essentially broken because it's happening offline and we lose sight of that. We'll talk a little bit more about this use case here coming up, and I'll kind of go into a little bit more detail. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was integrating your other data sets with GA360 to improve and optimize your users' experiences. So this is a big one. Sending in additional user data like demographic info, so information around age range, their gender, purchase behavior. So we talked a little bit about customer lifetime value, but being able to get that into GA360, information on their favorite products, the number of repeat purchases they've made, and then also preferences. So this is a big one for publishers. Content preferences, if they have preferences on authors or types of content. All that information can allow your organization to tailor that online experience for each user. So as an example, I'll give you a quick kind of example that I was thinking through the other day. Let's say you're an online retailer that sells boxing and mixed martial arts gloves. When people purchase on your website, you're already sending that transaction information, the product information, over to GA360. That's good, great. But for additional data points that can't be calculated in Google Analytics 360, and you'll hear us say this a lot, customer lifetime value or CLV, we actually need to do some advanced data analysis to be able to calculate this customer lifetime value for our users, for our customers. And so in that case, if we can actually do that analysis outside of Google Analytics 360, we can actually send that back into Google Analytics 360 to match with each customer. We can actually then create an online experience based off of these customer lifetime value segments, essentially. So for instance, we might have a segment of low customer lifetime value users. In that instance, we might be able to do some type of personalized experience where we can show them an offer on their homepage to actually give them a discount on a more expensive product. So when you think about it, someone with a low customer lifetime value, generally they're probably purchasing the cheaper products, probably not purchasing very often. In this case, we're going to try to upsell them to another product to get them to spend a little bit more by showing them a little bit more value. And then the next part I wanted to talk about the actual integrations that are available with other Google products. So all these integrations are native, meaning that they are automatic integrations already in place. There's no custom development work necessary to set them up. So first we have Display and Video 360. That's actually a new rebranded product. So it takes into account some of the former DoubleClick products like Bid Manager, Campaign Manager, Studio, and then Audience Center. There's also a native integration with Search Ads 360, which was formerly called DoubleClick Search. That's for paid search advertising. There's also an integration with Google Ad Manager, which was formerly called DoubleClick for Publishers, or DFP. And then Attribution 360 is an attribution tool that's currently not available. It's supposed to be coming out in 2019, but it was essentially built off of, if you've ever heard of Odometry, it was a previous tool that Google actually purchased a few years back. And then finally, Michael mentioned BigQuery as well. Google BigQuery is Google's essentially online data warehouse that has an integration with GA360. So we'll discuss the benefits of these integrations, but then I'll also provide you some examples as well. So the first one, Display and Video 360, this is going to allow you to bring in data from Display and Video 360 into GA360 for deeper analysis and better advertising optimization. So in this screenshot, you can actually see this is coming from Google's Merchandise Store's demo GA360 account, which is publicly available. If you search for it, you can get access to it. You can see that the specific ad creatives, among some other advertising dimensions, are actually brought into GA360 reporting along with both view-through and click-through data that's matched up with GA360 data. When I say view-through, essentially what I'm meaning is someone has seen an ad, they viewed the ad, they didn't click on it, but they ultimately made their way to the site. So they didn't click on an ad, they saw it, probably had the URL on it or something like that, typed it directly into the browser, went to the site. Click-through essentially means they saw the ad, clicked on the ad, made it to the website. So this level of granularity is not available in GA360 if you do not have this integration set up. Now, you would be able to optimize your advertising or remarketing efforts around this more granular info. So for instance, you can see that the first line item, placement bags, 300 by 250, you can see the revenue per session is much higher for the view-through activities than click-through activities. So in this case, more people are actually seeing the ad, going to Google Merchandise Store and purchasing than are actually clicking on an ad and then coming to the site and purchasing, which is pretty interesting. Without this granular view, Google's paid search team might not actually know this information. They would see that the click-through rate is very low for that specific ad, and then they wouldn't be, most likely would actually remove that ad. So in this case, this is actually showing you a little bit more granular information to say, even though we're showing an ad that's not getting clicks, that specific ad, if it's seen, is actually generating revenue for us. In this example, you can also create remarketing audiences based off of Google Analytics 360 data along with display and video 360 data. So this example is just showing you a remarketing list that includes people that have clicked one of your ads related to t-shirts and then came to the site. They spent a specific amount of time on the page, and then they left without ever purchasing. So in this case, we might want to remarket to these individuals to remind them of the product and get them back to the site to purchase. We might offer them a discount code for 10% off, something like that. Anything we can do to get them back and actually purchasing that product. The integration with Search Ads 360 is very similar to the previous integration we just talked about. This integration essentially allows you to pull in Search Ad 360 data into GA360 to match up with actual site data and user behavior. So very similar to the previous, but this data set is more or less for paid search advertising. And then just another example here, you can see we're actually pulling in keyword-specific data into GA360, so then we can optimize our keywords based on actual site behavior like transactions and revenue. So very valuable. The next Google integration is Ad Manager, which was previously called DoubleClick for Publishers. So this integration really has two important components. The first allows you to actually pull that data from Ad Manager into GA360 reports, so very similar to the integrations we were just talking about. This is going to allow publishers to actually see the specific pages and traffic sources that are driving the most advertising revenue. Without this integration, there's no way for a publisher just to look at their Google Analytics 360 data and say, this page made us $1,000 in terms of revenue coming from advertising. The next component of that integration is actually building audiences within Google Analytics 360 based on site behavior, based on engagement, and then send that over to Ad Manager to make it available for advertisers to target towards. So this is powerful because you can allow your advertisers to target specific behavior across your site. So for instance, you might have some type of segment you considered engaged readers, and maybe that consists of people that visit the site weekly and spend more than 5 minutes per session. So you can actually create an engaged readers audience based on that criteria and then send that over to Ad Manager for your team or for the advertising team to essentially target towards. It's also powerful for house ads or really internal ads that you might want to show to your site visitors. So for instance, if I'm the New York Times and I have a subscription model around content, I might want to create an audience to target our own ads to visitors that have seen the paywall but not actually purchased a subscription. So if you could include some types of offers or discounts to actually entice the audience to purchase, which is another great use case. And then the last one that I want to talk about is around BigQuery. So with BigQuery, as I mentioned before, BigQuery is essentially Google's online data warehouse. Within this integration, it allows you to pull in Google Analytics 360 data that is hit level and unsampled. So why that's a big deal is because a lot of the analysis that our data science team does and other data science teams do is actually based off of this more unsampled hit level data. We actually need that within BigQuery to actually be able to do a lot of that. So essentially what the integration does, it pulls in data on a regular basis, so it's either 3 times per day or every 15 minutes into BigQuery, and then we can have our data science teams work off of that directly in BigQuery, or we can connect it to another tool like R, like Google Data Studio, Tableau, any of those other tools. So a couple more slides here for my section. I wanted to talk about some additional integrations. These are not Google specific, so it's also possible to integrate then Google Analytics 360 with non-Google specific products. So the integration process with these additional sources depends really on whether the data sources have a pre-built connector with GA360 already or not. So for instance, there are other tools out there that automatically connect with Google Analytics 360. In those cases, you're not going to have to custom build anything. It's already pretty much plug and play for you. If they don't have those kind of native integrations, then your development team or your GA360 partner is going to need to custom build kind of that integration, and that can take some time and effort. So I'm going to talk specifically through a couple of these. You can see some of the ones we have listed here: the CRM system, a content management system, customer data platform, your online data warehouse or some type of internal database, a point of sale system, so within an actual store, an email marketing tool, and some more. I'm going to focus on the first two. Those are generally the ones that we deal with the most. So for the first one here, this is based off of a customer relationship management tool, so a CRM system. We've done a lot of integrations with CRMs like HubSpot and Salesforce over the years. So I'm not sure if any of you actually heard, but there's been an exciting announcement over the past couple of months that there is a native integration now with Google Analytics 360 and Salesforce. Previous to that, we did a lot of custom integration builds for GA360 and then Salesforce. So we've talked about a few of these data points already, but purchasing customer lifetime value information, that generally is going to come from some type of user database or your actual CRM system. We actually send that information into GA360. So we talked about personalizing the site experience based off of customer lifetime value or other purchase behavior. This is what would make that possible. On the next slide, we have an example of a report utilizing lifetime value, so personalizing the site based off of customer value or purchase behavior like buying certain products. So in this report, you can actually see we're looking at the acquisition channel, so what drove the person to the site, and then we're able to get down to a revenue per user or lifetime value. So with this information now, we can create audiences to either deliver a personalized experience on the site or to actually use it to optimize our advertising efforts to make sure that we're removing the channels that have a very low lifetime value to get those out of there and then increase our spend on ones that have a very high lifetime value. So I mentioned earlier that closing the loop on sales and marketing efforts was one of the major values for integrating with GA360. This would involve integrating your customer relationship management software or any kind of like call center software with Google Analytics 360. Just to give an example, we've done some work with a B2B company that sold water filtration and water softening systems. So the issue that they were actually having was around kind of their sales process. One, it took a long time, and then two, the actual transactions generally happened offline with the sales rep. So in this case, this company had no way to actually properly attribute the specific acquisition strategies that were working and which ones didn't, because they essentially lost that insight from the attribution. So to actually solve this issue, then we integrated their GA360 data with their CRM system, and so we actually sent the transaction information that was happening offline through the sales reps over the phone. We sent that information back to GA360 to tie into the specific person's information on the website, but also to kind of close that sales loop and report on transactions and revenue. This allowed the company to attribute these offline sales to their actual advertising campaigns that brought the people initially, and then they can get a unified view and proper attribution for their entire sales process, which is pretty cool. The last thing I'm going to talk about is integrating with your content management system. So this is a big one for publishing companies, the ones that have mainly content websites. By default, GA360 is only going to collect information on the page, like the page URL, the page title. There's really no additional kind of content dimensions that are going to be sent into GA. With your content management system, they can work that to pass in additional content-specific CMS fields to improve reporting and analysis. So this example screenshot is showing you some of the content-specific dimensions for their CMS that they have sent over. And it looks like our slide is not moving. I think we're stuck.
Michael, do you want, excuse me, Andy, you want me to forward it one?
Yeah, if you could. Yeah, if you could, please.
So are we right now, or it could be your computer. Right now we're at the, it says number 2, GA360 plus content management system.
Okay.
Maybe try refreshing your screen. Got it?
Okay, perfect. And then for the next slide here, you can see that we're looking at actual reports for these content-specific CMS dimensions that are actually within GA360. So now their editorial team can look at this and better understand the actual content's performance instead of just relying on something like page URL or page title to do that reporting. So for this next section, I'm going to pass it over to Michael again. He's going to walk through how to actually sell GA360 internally to your organization.
Thank you so much, Andy. That was a lot of very interesting content about different platforms. So now let's take a step back or maybe a step forward. Now that we have all this information and we know how much of this is possible, how do we actually sell this to an executive? And let me first just to clarify that do not take this whole presentation to your executive team. This is for you to use, for you to understand, and for you to leverage. When we share this with your executive teams, we need to show on what is the value of these integrations. Now, I believe there was one question about, well, how do we demonstrate the value of analytics, or how can we show that our revenue will grow by 10% if we invest in analytics? Now, there is no perfect answer to that, but what you can do is model this, right? What you can do is make an assumption using your data and saying that in our past experiences, when we focused on redefining who our customer segments are, we were able to acquire more profitable customer cohort, and we were able to increase the profitability by 2%. So if we can continue doing this months over months, this will be able to generate a cumulative increase, and we'll be able to generate that much revenue. The same you can do with A/B testing is you can build a model, and the model can be nothing will change, which is your option 1. Now option 2 will be medium results, right? Certainly some things will go well and others might not. And the third model can be high impact if everything goes well using analytics. That's the best way that we found so far to sell really value to your organization, is model different options. The next one is, as I already pointed out, leave out the technical details. The executive team does not care about integration with DoubleClick, does not care about additional custom dimensions. What they care about is how you'll be able to leverage this information. Why the team will be smarter with data. Again, as we mentioned, and the reason we continue mentioning so many times is because it's so important, is emphasizing the ROI, or at least how you plan to measure this. Again, ability for you to model different scenarios. And last one is how do you budget for people and upskilling, not just tools. So when you sell to your executive team, a lot of times you want to say, well, this is the very minimum amount that I need. The solution costs $150,000. I only need $150,000. That's actually a little bit misleading. You need more because you need to account for everything that will be required of your team to maximize that product that you now have access to. So budget for people and upskilling, it might be a little bit more money, but it will be that much easier for you to recoup your investment. So finally, let's say you made the decision and you were able to pitch to your executive team. One thing I also want to explain that very often with our clients, with our partners, we participate in the pitch very much together, where the clients, stakeholders are explaining the work that they will be doing, we are explaining the work that we are doing, and we are demonstrating how jointly they will be able to help the company not just recoup the investment, but generate high ROI on their new solution. And it's very important to find the right partner. Because obviously, buying Google Analytics 360, there are different partners that you can leverage. So when you negotiate with the right partner, you ultimately want this kind of genie, right? Somebody who can do everything for your business. You want to account that there is account management and support that's available, that they have experience in the tools and certified in these solutions, that they have the experience in the industry, especially if you're in retail or if you're a brick and mortar or if you're in CPG. You want somebody who understands that language and who can tell you this is what other organizations are doing. And make sure that you pick somebody where it's a long-term investment. Right? A lot of times we find that organization might start figuring out, well, can we find somebody cheaper for $1,000, right, or $2,000? In the long run, it really doesn't matter. You need a successful partnership. Otherwise, if you explain that I saved $2,000, but the whole $100,000 project was inefficient, then the project will not look good, and certainly your job might be in jeopardy. So plan for long-term success. And when you negotiate the right agreement with the partner, this GA360 specifically, keep in mind that it's tiered pricing. And you have the ability to pay overages on a monthly basis. So the tier is the first tier is 500 million hits per month, and then you can simply pay for the overages. You need to negotiate not just the price of the product, as you've discussed, but the inclusion of support, strategic consulting and training, somebody who can help you put everything together. Evaluate product bundles, something that Andy has spent quite a bit of time on today. And ultimately, remember the basic rule of negotiations. You have two levers, your price and your terms, right? The price might be non-negotiable, but in terms of terms, can you get additional support? Can you get additional training at no additional charge? Different ways where you can negotiate the agreement that is right for you. And finally, just again, want to leave you with this, really being mindful of the 6 P's of transition to Google Analytics 360 of any digital transformation is, 1, really understanding the purpose. Why are we doing this? Then 3 P's of execution, your people, platforms, and processes. And 2 P's of measuring pace. Can you do things faster? And payoff, how much money are you going to be able to make as a result of this investment? And with that, let's turn over to answering some questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. And thanks to Andy there, too. We've presented our audience with a tremendous amount of information about Google Analytics 360. We have a few questions coming in now, so we want to try and take the few minutes we have left to get right to them. Audience, if you have some questions for Michael and Andy, please submit them now while we have a couple of minutes left in our presentation time. I'm going to get right into it here. Bring the first question up. So, Michael, you talked about CLV, and as we explained to our audience, that stands for Customer Lifetime Value. This audience member wanted to know how easy it is to measure customer lifetime value, and for what percentage of customers do you typically have a lifetime value?
Sure. So anything that requires in-depth analysis is difficult to say easy or not. It really depends on the maturity of your analytical organization. We've done, as I mentioned, a number of webinars with Professor Fader from Wharton Business School on measuring lifetime value, and we can share that information. So it's not that difficult, but it does require some more, I would say, data science capabilities. There are a couple of different open models that are available leveraging R that you can use. As far as the next part of the question, what percentage of customers do you typically have CLV for? It depends on your type of business. If you're a subscription business, it will be the majority of your customers, right? Because you'll be able to have a lot of historical data, what people are paying on a monthly basis. You'll have churn rate and a lot of other data points that we can use. If you are just starting out, obviously you are not going to have a lot of CLV data because you've not been in business that long. So before we, for example, start any CLV project, what we like to do is do an audit of state of analytics to determine if there is enough data points about your customers. And then after we have that, we can come back to you and say, look, for the 40% of your customer base, we will be able to do that. And 40% can be, it's a large amount, so it can be statistically significant. So I would say if this is something that you're interested in, you can reach out. And again, it's more of the question, the type of business that you have, and doing an audit before you begin a very comprehensive customer lifetime value project is to simply evaluate access to the data that you have right now, and then determining if that's enough, and then you can do the exercise. Hope this was helpful.
All right. Let's try and squeeze one in here. And Andy, we'll get to you on this one because it has to do with available integrations, and you covered that in your talk. Google 360 A/B testing and Optimizely. Is there an integration available, or would that be a custom integration?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. So yes, we've worked with Optimizely in the past. We work obviously with Google Optimize 360 as well. The benefit with working with Optimize 360 is it has a two-way integration with Google Analytics. And so what that means is essentially it is a native integration. There's no custom code needed or anything like that. What that means is you can actually send data from Google Optimize 360, so based on the actual results that you're seeing, based on the actual testing variations, that information will be pushed over to Google Analytics 360. So then you can segment your data by those, essentially those kind of test variations and users that are falling into those. But then also there is another feature that will allow you to share audiences from Google Analytics 360 back into Optimize 360 to actually target your users. So a couple cool use cases with that, or really the one that's popping at the top of my head is what we've been talking around customer lifetime value. If we can collect that information in Google Analytics, we can create essentially segments of or audiences of users that have a high lifetime value. We can share that with Google Optimize 360 to then customize their experience or to test different variations or different offers. And so there are a lot of really cool use cases, but yes, the integration with Google Optimize 360 is two-way. It goes into GA, and GA you can share audiences back. With Optimizely, it's only a one-way integration, and it's going from Optimizely to GA 360. There's no feature to share audiences based off of Google Analytics data back into the Optimizely platform. So great question.
All right. Good. Well, let's end on this note then. One of our attendees just posted cost, which we haven't mentioned today. And Michael, maybe you want to just address that real quick?
Sure. So again, as we mentioned, when we talk about cost, it's important to understand that the cost of the Google Analytics 360 technology itself might not be the only cost that you need to consider, depending on the maturity, the size of your organization, what you're trying to accomplish. Google Analytics 360 pricing starts at $150,000 per year, and it's for up to 500 million hits. And certain support training is included as part of that agreement. So you already receive help with leveraging the technology. But again, you need to consider what exactly you're building within the organization, why you're buying this tool, who within your company will be using it, and whether you can generate a higher ROI if you partner with an organization. Now, even for the basic price of $150,000, something very important to note, the price is the same whether you buy it from a partner like us or whether you buy it directly from Google. But often there is more flexibility on our side in terms of helping you determine the right service package that will go together with the solution.
All right, thank you. Well, and thank you, audience. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have today. So I want to thank Michael and Andy for a very informative and timely presentation. And I want to thank you, audience, for these great questions that you've gotten into us. We had a couple more that we didn't have time for, but we are going to pass them along to our friends at InfoTrust for follow-up. I want to give a special thank you to our sponsor, InfoTrust, which you can visit, as you see here, at I believe it's infotrustllc.com. So be careful with that. I think we've got it wrong here. That's all for our broadcast today. We look forward to seeing you next time right here at Digital Marketing Depot.